Good afternoon. Welcome to Leadership, the Secret Sauce with coaches Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson. Today, we're delving into the realms of leadership and coaching. Join us as we sit down with remarkable leaders and coaches, uncovering their unique insights and strategies that make them exceptional. We'll explore the question, what is your secret sauce and when did you know? Unveiling those hidden ingredients behind their success. Are you ready? So we'll begin. But before we begin, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching and Consulting, where they believe that your character is the compass guiding you through life's journey. Whether you're facing personal or professional challenges, they are dedicated to helping you discover and strengthen the core values that define who you are. In today's episode, we are going to discuss the secret sauce with our guest coach, Jill DePompei-Morales. We'll discuss the ins and outs of what she has brought today and offer listeners a special look. We want to be sure that you listen all the way through for everything she has to say. All right. Dave, you want to kick us off with our check-in?
Absolutely. And welcome, Jill. We are, as you know, part of our mission of our podcast is to help grow extraordinary coaches and leaders. And one of the exercises I like to do with the classes I teach or the coaching I do is to do a check-in. Do a check-in, check through, check out. And in the check-in, we start off and we ask people on a scale from 1 to 10, what is your energy level? And this goes also for Matt and I. So I normally do it in the chat if it's a lot of people, but on a scale from 1 to 10, what's your energy level, Jill? I'll start off. I'm at about an 8. Whereabouts are you?
I was about to say an 8 as well. Yeah, a little higher because it's Friday, right?
Friday, right? Yeah. And Matt, how about you? What's your energy level?
I must admit, I had a maple bar donut before we started, so I'm like at a 9.
I like it, right? The sugar, right? Puppy uppers and doggy down.
That's right.
Right? And so Matt will have to pick you up in a couple minutes as the glucose level goes down. And then the second question is the focus level question, which is like on a scale from 1 to 10, what is your focus level on the here and now? Like just being present to the podcast and what we're doing and in terms of sharing your secret sauce and talk a little bit about your coaching philosophy, approach, and view. My focus level is probably like a 7.75. I don't know why. I'm coming up with that number.
It's very specific. Yeah, I'm probably a 9 because I've cleared the space for this. I was very excited to be here with you both today.
That's awesome. I too am very excited to learn a little more about you and your approach and how you see this wonderful, wacky world of coaching that we're in. And Matt, just your focus level, Matt?
I would say it's a 9 right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the sugar donut would make you basically go all over the place, but that's just me. Like when I give my kids donuts, they would lose focus.
Well, it's sort of offset by a little caffeine too, so it adds to the focus. I feel like I'm a high schooler actually describing my donuts and caffeine
your
intake
breakfast
right
of
now.
Champions.
I did not have Mountain Dew like I did when I was high school or anything like that. It's just straight maple donut and green tea. Yeah.
It sounds like a healthy diet, healthy coach's diet. We'll have to do a podcast on coaching diets.
Yeah, this one's for posterity. All right. Thanks for the check-in, Dave. All right. Well, Jill, it's really great to have you. I wanted to give a little bit. When Jill and I were talking before then, she said, well, why don't you tell other people what you think about my bio or what your knowledge about my bio is? So for those of you that may not know Jill personally, Jill was my boss at one point in time at Chevron when she was the manager of talent development. This was, 13, 12 years ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Jill was my boss. And what I found her to be is just very like an amazing listener for all my crazy ideas. And that is what I needed. It wasn't like you're, out there. It was just tell me more. And but that's not what Jill is doing now. So she's since left Chevron or left that company where she was my boss. And she works for a company now called PermaPure. And there's also, it's Max Tech, right? I think that's
two different companies.
Yeah, two different companies, head of talent and culture. I'll share this other thing. Jill and I had a chance to work together. It was a couple of years ago before she went off to eBay, back to eBay. Anyway, I wanted to work with you again. And so it meant a lot to me, I think, to co-create unique things with you while you were at Chevron as a contractor for that period of time. So anything else, Jill, that's really unique around your current role at a PermaPure or at Max Tech?
I think you've covered it really well, Matt. Thank you. And I too wanted to work with you again. I think we have a secret sauce together as coaches, but I do my coaching in addition to being head of talent. So it's kind of balancing both of the worlds, and they do tend to merge quite nicely. So,
yeah. Well, tell me. We'll start off with the first question. So, how would you describe your secret sauce? What is it?
I love this question. We get it in various forms around like, what's your purpose? And, what's your impact? Or, you have it in kind of different flavors, but this was a unique way of asking that same question, I think. Mm-hmm. And I really thought about it because I've thought a lot about my purpose and kind of what makes me unique in this space. And I think, honestly, I have a deep desire to relate. So my relatability is really kind of my secret sauce. And I have an ability to actually build trust quickly through that. Once there's something that I find as common ground that I can relate to, people tend to open up in ways that they never imagined possible. So it creates this really trusting, fluid relationship between coach and client, and it helps me guide them to places they've never been, which opens up all kinds of possibilities. So it's a fun exploration for both of us because I learn about myself too. So it's really unique.
Yeah. I think just following that up, I love the idea of like it's kind of the secret sauce superpower ability to connect, relate, and build trust. And you had mentioned that you have a secret sauce with Matt, and I was wondering if you could just describe a little bit of that. Like what was that connection, and what did it look like? What did it feel like?
I think it's exactly what I just described. So I have a way of sensing into people pretty quickly, and I knew Matt was full of ideas and thoughts about how to do things and just kind of bumping up against the edge of things. And I too love that. And I love to nurture that in people. And so I just let him go and let him kind of like express what was most important and what was on his mind. And then we'd have this really nice dialogue back and forth about it, right? And I wouldn't try to hamper that. I would try to actually give him more space for that so that we could get to a really good solution. And Matt took some of our programs and he thought out of the box and he wanted to try things. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned as a leader and a coach is to open up the space and provide a container for experimenting. And that's what we did together. So we got a chance to do that again when I went back to Chevron or to the company where we worked to be a contractor. We were able to kind of try something new and really push those boundaries. And I think it's a huge success. I think, if I were to remember correctly, it took off like wildfire. So it's really just that, because I'm not always the one with the best ideas, but I can recognize a good one. And I love to give people the space for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you describing that. And Matt has got this natural authenticity and energy that, and when I first met him, it was just like, I feel like we're related. Why is this that easy? And then sometimes, right, with like coaching clients and in organizations, people don't have that,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
True.
like we have to somehow find that connection,
Mm-hmm.
find a way to get in. And I wanted to ask you, like, when as you developed this over your career, like, how did you know when that was one of your natural abilities? Like, when did you become aware of it?
I love that part of the question because it really got me kind of in my interior, right? Like I had to kind of drop into that. And I think I've had it my whole life. So, and the reason I say that, so it got nurtured obviously as I became older and got more aware of kind of my own behavior and how I responded to things. But I was, I've always been told that there's something different about me. And my mother used to call it special. So, of course, as a kid, when you hear that, you're like, what do you mean by that?
Mm.
And so what that is just, people will open up to me and they always have. And it's funny because I think the reason why this is so successful for me is I'm just me. I don't have to try to kind of force fit anything or be somebody I'm not or have the social
Mm.
pressures of certain things. I just show up as me, much like you just
Mm.
described Matt, which is obviously why he and I get along so well together, is we just show up as ourselves and then we create magic together. And so I show up as me. I relate very quickly to something. I grew up lower middle class. I certainly know struggle. I've had to, kind of, pull myself up by the bootstraps, figure out what needed to be done, very resourceful. So I can really relate to a lot of different backgrounds, facets of life,
Mm.
people's struggles. And once that happens, then the work begins, right? Because they've
Mm.
opened up that channel for us to really kind of, be in it together. And they trust that I have their best interest at heart. So
Mm.
I've always had that ability. I just didn't really know what it was. I was just like,
Mm.
man, people tell me the craziest things, and as I started to grow up and grow wiser around it, I was like, there's a gift there that I want to be able to really nurture and give back because you only need one person who believes in you, in my opinion. And
Mm.
I love to do that and be that for somebody. It's a gift and an honor to be able to be that person so that they can, start to go into uncharted territory where they can explore their talents and their gifts and, have a different kind of lens on things.
You know what? I would just say something that was coming to mind as you were talking, like this idea that as a coach, I'm willing to go there, and my client has to be trusting enough to say, "Hey, I'm willing to go there. I don't necessarily know where I'm going with you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
willing to go." And it may scare me of
Yeah.
where we're going to go together, but at least I know I'm not going by myself. Right. I mean, I think that's the sort of the trusting
Absolutely.
relationship that I would sort of hear in that. Like, okay, it may scare the pants off me, and but I'll try because
Mm-hmm.
what's my alternative is to just stay in doing what I'm doing now, right? Rather
Exactly.
than the a undreamed of future. Yeah. Wow.
It's
You
Yeah,
got
it's
another
it's
one?
interesting. Like I was on a yesterday. I was listening to like a Hogan Lunch and Learn on the
Mm.
competency skeptical, right? And if your client
Yeah. Yeah.
is skeptical, and it's like I don't know if I believe you're actually here to help me, right? And like at what
Mm.
point a client actually trusts you enough, relates to you enough, and what's fascinating to me is sometimes the harder we try to move forward on what we're trying to do with coaching, the less we actually have that trust. So I'm
Mm.
very interested. I know Matt's going to answer you the next question. I can't help myself, but
Yeah.
like, how do you are you relating? Like when you're first talking with somebody, Like, how much are you focused on task moving coaching forward, and how much are you focused on relationship of let's just connect?
Yeah. What do you
Is
think,
that a
Jill?
question for me now?
Yeah,
Or
it's you.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I was wondering
yeah,
if you were about
yeah.
to ask me the
That's
question,
it.
Matt.
No,
Okay.
no, that's a great question. Hey, look,
Yeah, that's a good one.
my question is not better than that one.
No worries. Okay, so that's a great question. I don't have an agenda at all. So I go into my coaching relationships fully open-minded and ready for anything that's meant to unfold. So I let it be an organic process, and I let the client guide me a lot. I don't feel a need to steer to a certain objective. Now, they sometimes come with objectives, and I think that's fine. And we can certainly explore that. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to go in a different direction because they've led it there. And then they end up getting more out of that. I truly believe people have what they need inside of them. And just being that mirror and allowing them to kind of see it themselves is really, kind of the secret there. And then they go where they need to go. And I just come along with them, to your point, Matt, because they don't want to be alone. It's scary. It's hard. It's often things that they've never really been able to put language around or emotion or feeling. And so they like knowing they have a partner in that. And I learn all along that path as well.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know what? Before I ask my other question, I have another question because I'm fascinated by this whole thing. Is this any different, like if you're doing leadership coaching versus like high performance athlete coaching? I know you've done some of that in the past. Like, what's different? Is there anything different about the sauce for that versus what you bring in terms of like a leadership context for Permapure or anything you did at Chevron or
Yeah,
eBay,
it's a
anything
great
like that?
question. I think the sauce is the same. The ingredients are the same. The temperature might be a little bit different depending on the situation and the client. High performance athletes tend to be very driven in a different way than leaders, for example, because they're motivated by different things, right? So you have to really get at the motivators. And I find that athletes, which is why it's one of my favorite demographics to coach, they're hardwired for this intense work. And I love intense. I love going deep as quickly as they're ready to go. And they tend to want to do that more quickly because they'll do anything it takes to get better performance. So we start with the performance piece of it. And here's the beauty of it. And it ends up being a holistic approach. And then they start to see better results, in their life. And then they want to come back for more of that because now they've identified as something other than just an athlete. So that's that nice bridge and transition. With leaders, a lot of them have been successful without any self, kind of awareness or development. And so there's a little bit more of a resistance. So the sauce is the same because I believe in that sauce, and it's really what that secret piece of it is to be my authentic self and use those same ingredients, but the temperature is different, right? Sometimes there's more resistance, so I back off of it a little bit, or I know I have to find that right window to push in. So they're a little trickier. I find corporate leaders to be a little trickier than athletes with regard to that.
No. Fascinating. So my question, and thank you for those other questions, for answering those other questions. I think it's a great analogy when you think about sauces in different heat and temperatures.
Yeah.
Right? We'll actually get you can warm butter and you can make it whatever it is, caramel sauce or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what would you really want? So say you're now in the receiving end. What would you want from a coach?
I mean, for me, I think I'd want what I give, right? So it's kind of that same, reciprocal kind of relatability and authenticity. I I work best with that, to be honest. In fact, I find myself, even outside of a coaching relationship, if I don't feel we have an authentic relationship, I get kind of like I don't know what to do with that, right? It puts me in a really weird space. So I need that authenticity. I need that relatability. I need that ability to push me where I have blind spots, because we all do. I could work on myself for the rest of my life and we're all going to still have, it's all a journey, right? So I need somebody to challenge me, because I can be a challenge, right? Like, I know I'm challenging. Just ask my husband, right? So there's a lot to me. I'm complex. So I need people to really kind of dig in and not be afraid to go there with me, because I'm also very resilient. And, given the way I've grown up and the things I've been through, like I know how to do that work. I just need somebody to push me.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I in terms of like knowing where I need to be pushed and wondering where my clients need to be pushed. Like, I am really good at resisting myself, like resisting those areas that you could try pushing, but you're not getting anywhere. Like, how do you choose to focus in and find those areas that your clients need to be pushed on as a coach? What would I see you doing if you were doing that?
I listen very intently for patterns of behavior. And so I can kind of key into that, pretty early in the relationship, and I'll take a step into it. And if I feel like it's not the right time, then I know how to adjust and pivot, but I'll always come back to it. So I'll listen for excuse making. I'll listen for things that I think are barriers that are consistently patterned out. I'll listen for, responses that others give to them around their behavior, those kinds of things. It's all in the art of listening and pattern detection, in my opinion, as a coach.
Yeah, I like that. I it made me think of, like, sometimes there's questions that unlock that. Are there any questions that you like to use to unlock that in your clients?
Well, powerful questions are powerful, right? So I do. They kind of come to me on the spot. It's like I don't have a script of questions, to be honest, because again, when I drop into the presence of a coaching relationship, I'm listening in the moment for something, and then it'll prompt a question. So, there's questions around, well, how has that worked out for you? Right. There's those kinds of self-reflective kinds of questions where sometimes people don't even put it together, right? They're like, oh yeah, the last 3 times I did that, it hasn't gone so well. And then you start to deconstruct that, right? Because you never want to make them feel like, they're making bad decisions purposely. Like you want them to kind of come to the conclusion of, you know what, maybe that behavior was there for a reason before, but it's not serving me well anymore. And these are the reasons why, so it's kind of more about that self-discovery.
I like that. Yeah, I like that natural exploration, right? And like it's in asking, like holding the mirror up to the recurring patterns of how we resist, right? What we've learned, right? And how to use that in current situations is a very organic approach. And then sometimes it's when I'm teaching coaches, they're often asking me, all right, what's your list of magical questions? Like, I want that. Like, give us the secret sauce of questions. And so I'll move on to the next question, which is, it might not be the secret sauce of questions, but what are 3 books that you would recommend that help that have helped you, that you think might help others in their journey?
Yeah. So I thought about this too, and have over the years. I like to read all kinds of things because I like to be as well-rounded as I can. So my coaching, kind of view of the world and philosophy is somewhat centered around the Enneagram, So I like that typing system, that personality typing system, because of its holistic nature. But I'm eclectic, so I pull from many things. So I do like the book, The Enneagram by Russ Hudson, who's one of the premier modern thought leaders in that space, because I think he has a really nice way of breaking down the 9 types and putting it into practical terms, because it can feel a little woo-woo to some, right, who start to dig into that. So I do enjoy that just for grounding on the Enneagram. I love the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think it's just a classic for how I approach life. So it's very resonant for me. And so I think it's just such a nice, easy read and just so principled in my core values. So I do love that one. And then I just finished Brave New Work by Aaron Dignan, and I was quite impressed with that. That book kind of takes some of the other 2 and it applies it to the workplace. And so if you want kind of a variety of styles and content, those 3 books would really cover it, in my opinion. I love the pushing of the boundaries, the human system that's dynamic inside of an org versus a machine that you can control. I love, just kind of revamping all of our old ways of working and thinking differently about how we come together and connect and relate as humans inside of work. So I think those are 3 really solid books that I would highly recommend.
Those are great books. Those are on my reading list now. So a couple of rereads, and then Brave New Work. I'm excited about that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. Joe, we do like to ask other people, if in the event that we haven't interviewed them yet, who would you interview next with some of these same questions that you'd like to hear about their secret sauce?
So
could be anybody.
I think Renee Deneen from RMD Coaching would be somebody that she's just a beautiful human to start with. She's an amazing coach. She was on TEDx. I mean, she's a good friend of mine, and I think that she has some amazing insights that other coaches would really enjoy. She has a very kind of heart forward approach to her coaching. So she'd be the one I'd recommend.
Great. We'll look forward to that connection.
Yeah.
That's good.
My pleasure.
Dave, you want to do our reflections here? Thanks, Jill. We do like you to stick around here so you can hear some of our own personal reflections on what we heard.
Yeah, I just it's just such a pleasure talking to you, Jill. I like your authenticity, like cuts through the medium of our technology that we're using. I would want to be coached by you. And I also I appreciate this. There's a certain strength that you show in being authentic and just wanting to relate and connect. And it's something I appreciate it because in developing coaches, one of the most challenging areas is to let people know, you just need to be yourself, right? You just take a breath. Don't try to play a role. Don't try to be anybody else. Just authentically connect with others. And there's no one rule for how you do that. And you epitomize that for me.
Oh,
so thank you.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah. You know what? There's a couple of thoughts I would have. First off, the concept of you being relatable to your coachees was, I think that's something that I just miss sometimes in knowing the right time to share that relatability. But I think you show up relatable. And that actually is what makes it powerful. And that's what makes your secret sauce is that you show up relatable. And it's not pretense. It's still maintaining the coach-client difference, right? That it doesn't take that away. And I think that's what I find most fascinating about what you had to say. And then I do actually have a personal two confessions. The first one is I want you to know that I don't think I really appreciated you as my boss enough for really just allowing freedom and like acknowledging people. So thank you for all that you are as a leader. That's really good. And then the other one was this is the other piece that you had talked about was sort of going to places as with a coach and a coachee that they may, and I think sometimes, and this is sort of back to the relatability, sometimes even as a coach, I want to polish my piece of poop as much as possible to make it only sound really good. And I don't think that maybe missing some vulnerability that on that side. And I think that is sort of like a good challenge that I heard, like, hey, you don't have to polish it. Just show up. It's really, it's you, you know, and in order to really be present with the person that's sitting either side by side or across the table from you, you really have to just bring yourself full stop or whatever it is, full force. And that's what I heard. And I think that is, I would echo that. I would want to be coached because then I would know that my coach just wants me to actually not just try to polish it as much as possible to make it sound good. Like, oh, I did this with this person and this person. Well, that may be polishing a story a little bit more than what really needs to happen. And so anyway,
thanks, Matt.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is, wow. Thanks. This is a fantastic coaching session.
You feel better, Matt? Are you okay now?
Man alive. Yeah. I didn't cry or anything like that, you know? So, I mean, that's a positive.
Jill and I actually got together before the call.
Yeah.
This is an introduction.
Just let that unfold the way it needed to.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to, I mean, you know, we could try to posture even as coaches, right? And you're like, no, you know what? Hey, you can hold the conversation really well for a client. And that's what you're committing to doing, is holding that conversation.
That's right.
But you're still you. Mm-hmm. And you can't not be affected by the argument that you had with your spouse or the disappointment or whatever it happens to be. Because that's not you, right? That's like trying to compartmentalize even as a coach. And that shows through. So anyway, you gave me courage to do that, I think, when we were working together. So
thank you. Thank you.
That is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
I think, creating space for people to be themselves is a really good ingredient. Mm-hmm. So let me close this out. Special thanks to our sponsor. Are you feeling stuck or overwhelmed? Character Matters Coaching and Consulting provides leadership coaching and consulting to empower you to overcome obstacles and reach your full potential, like Jill did for Matt, as an example. Visit charactermatters.us.com to learn more about the transformative coaching and how to get connected to Matt for your organization. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.